How does it work to make a pillow? This is what the finished product is going to look like. Now we're going to show you how we did it. Debbie started out with a pattern cut on the AccuQuilt, and she put the corners together and sewed them. She continues adding pieces. You might notice how the corners are dog-eared so that they all fit together. You can see in this close-up how the corners fit. When you sew the next block together, it makes a nice square. The 1/4 inch seam allowance is necessary to make it even. You can see how that edge fits. And then there's some more sewing. This is the center section. You just continue adding pieces as you go along. It's not quite looking like a quilt yet. We're starting to get long strips that all fit. It's important to keep the 1/4 inch seam allowance so that everything will be the same. Now the blocks are getting bigger. Now we have 3 strips we can join. In order to make the corners fit, you have to line up those edges. Where the seams join, you want the edges to meet. You hold down those seams on top of each other as you sew over them. Just making sure that those edges are right on top of each other. Just climbs right over them, making sure the 1/4 inch seam allowance is maintained. Now we've got all those little pieces together. I think there's 25 so far. Now Debbie's putting on the sashing, maintaining that 1/4 inch seam allowance. Here's the sashing going on. She's cutting the sashing flush with the edge to add the next piece of sashing. There it is. See how it overlaps? This is the last sashing. Then we take it over to the cutting board and square it up. We've got all 29 pieces together now. It's time to press it, make it nice and flat. The batting and the top are put together in the 120 by 120 hoop. You want to get the center block fairly well centered in the pattern so that we have enough room to quilt it. This is what the back side looks like. So we're going to select our quilting pattern, attach our hoop to the embroidery arm, put on our embroidery thread, position it so that the center of the design will be in the center of the square. And we're going to start sewing. When it's done, the machine stops and cuts the thread. Now it's time to remove the hopping foot. Attach the ruler work foot with the ankle screw. We set the machine on free motion floating. When you start to stitch, you make sure the ruler is not touching the foot so that the machine can sense the thickness of the fabric and not think the ruler is part of the fabric. The parallel lines on the curved ruler are so that you can position the foot exactly where you want it for the next row of stitches. It's important to hold the fabric tight to the ruler, yet not so tight that you can't move it along the ruler foot. When you finish, the top will look like this. Square it up one more time. Debbie is folding the hem so that she can do the back of the pillow for an envelope. You press it so it makes a nice clean seam. Set the sewing machine back on a straight stitch without the free motion floating and sew the hem. Sew the hem on the second piece of fabric. Now we put the pretty pieces of fabric together and we're going to sew on the back side, overlapping the back so that we form an envelope. Debbie's sewing along the edge. After both edges have been joined, since the backing wasn't cut exactly the same size as the top, she flipped the fabric over and is sewing on the back side over the batting. This allows her to know exactly where the edge of the quilted pattern will be. You can see here how the back of the fabric is bigger than the top, so that's why she's doing it on the back side. Continue doing this all the way around. She's still maintaining that perfect 1/4 inch seam with the outside edge of the foot. See the red line? Now it's time to turn that pillow right side out. That's what that envelope back allows you to do. Didn't have to put a zipper in it or anything. And there we have our pillow top. And that's what it looks like on the back. Now we just take a pre-made pillow form. You kind of squash that pillow form inside that new pillow. And there it is. So that's how it works to quilt a pillow top, embroider on it, and do ruler work. And it all took about an hour and a half.